Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something pretty interesting, a real corporate experiment from Apple back in 2025, the iPhone 17 Air. We're looking at how they tried this high-stakes mission, prioritizing that radical industrial design. Pure form over maybe, traditional function, especially when they swapped out the old Plus model for this Air.
Exactly. And that focus, it led straight to the defining engineering moment for that whole lineup. I mean, the iPhone Air achieved this breakthrough thinness, just 5.6 millimeters, and housed in polished titanium. Think about that for a second. It was easily the slimmest iPhone they'd ever made, an absolutely unprecedented physical thing.
Okay, so 5.6 millimeters, and it started at $999. So the pitch was really all about being extremely light, extremely portable, but you've got to ask, right? Was that tiny bit of extra thinness, was it really enough to make you shell out that kind of money?
Well, strategically, it was pretty complex. Apple did try to sweeten the deal a bit. They democratized a really key feature. They put the 6.5-inch 120 hertz promotion display, which used to be just for the Pro models,
Right.
into this non-Pro Air.
Right, which was meant to signal high value, I suppose.
Yeah, but it was a gamble, a really high-stakes segmentation move because it blurred the lines.
And it immediately set up this internal competition, didn't it? Which is where maybe things started to unravel a bit, because the base iPhone 17, the cheaper one,
Uh-huh.
it also got that 120 hertz promotion display. So if the screen wasn't the big differentiator anymore, well, it had to come down to actual utility. And that's where the super thin, that 5.6 millimeter body became maybe a bit of a problem.
It really did, yeah. That radical design forced two pretty major sacrifices, and these really defined its struggles in the market. First up, the camera.
Right.
The Air was limited, just a single 48-megapixel lens on the back. Crucially, it didn't have the dual fusion camera system,
Oh, right.
which even the cheaper base iPhone 17 did have.
And just for context, that dual fusion system, that's the tech that gives you the advanced computational photos, better detail, especially in low light. That feels like a pretty fundamental thing to lose on a premium phone. What else did the thinness affect?
Well, the obvious one, power, battery life. That incredibly thin profile just didn't leave much room. It only allowed for a 3,149 milliamp battery, which sounds okay maybe, but it was drastically less than the base iPhone 17. That one had 3,692 milliamp.
Okay, quite a gap.
Yeah. And in testing, it showed the Air clocked in at just 12 hours and 2 minutes of runtime. The base model beat it by a solid 45 minutes.
Oof. Okay, that's noticeable day to day. And the technical impacts didn't stop there, did they? It kind of revealed how the design really dictated the performance limit.
Exactly. Thermals were a big issue.
Right. And something that thin.
So to manage the heat, the Air used let's call it a segmented A19 Pro chip. Basically, it only got a 5-core GPU configuration.
While the actual Pro models...
They got the full 6-core GPU.
Yeah.
And what that missing core means for you, the user, well, it means the Air couldn't really sustain peak graphics performance. Think high-end gaming, heavy graphical loads. It would throttle. The device was engineered to look amazing, but thermally, it just had limits.
So beautiful design, but real compromises underneath. How did the market react? Did people buy into the beauty?
Well, the iPhone 17 generation overall did pretty well, strong sales. But the Air model, it struggled. Reports widely called sales lackluster. It definitely fell short compared to its siblings, the base model and the Pros. And here's a critical point. Apple made a very specific strategic choice. They didn't even launch the Air in China.
Wow, okay. The biggest smartphone market.
Exactly. It seems they knew those camera and battery trade-offs just wouldn't work in a market that's often very spec-focused.
So that market reaction, it really tells the story, doesn't it? It sounds like classic internal cannibalization. People looked at the lineup and they preferred the better utility, the better camera, the bigger battery that they got from the cheaper base iPhone 17.
Precisely.
Rather than paying almost $1,000 just for that specialized thin aesthetic.
Right. The $999 just wasn't justifiable based on thinness alone. Not with those functional hits. And, the commercial failure of the Air, it wasn't just a blip. It really confirmed something important for Apple internally. It showed that just making small, incremental gains in the traditional phone design, well, it wasn't enough anymore.
Especially if it involves sacrifices.
Exactly. And that realization, we now know, is directly speeding up their pivot towards something genuinely transformative. We're talking, of course, about foldables, devices that offer real utility innovation, not just aesthetic tweaks.
So the big takeaway here seems pretty clear. Aesthetic progress, even really impressive engineering like that thinness, It just isn't enough to command a premium price if it forces you to give up core functions people expect.
Yeah. And it leaves us with a really interesting question looking forward. What if, to keep an airline going, maybe they needed to add, just say, 1 millimeter of thickness back, enough to fit in that dual fusion camera, enough for better battery life? Would the market accept that? Would that small trade-off in thinness be worth the functional gain? It really highlights that constant tension, doesn't it, between engineering aesthetics and what consumers actually value day to day. That's the challenge.